We have our own amazing Lucy Sandy, who's going to be in conversation with Iswarya Parupudi. Now, Iswarya is the director of engineering for Voxy. She used to debug code, but now debugs teams for a living. As an engineering leader in the EdTech space, Iswarya she uses empathy and a decade of experience to bring teams together. She's passionate about mentoring other women and driving diversity initiatives in tech. Lucy and Iswarya, I'm going to turn the stage over to each of you. Can't wait to hear the discussion ahead. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you so much, Meg. Thank you, and welcome. I'm very excited for this topic. But first and foremost, just so everyone that's watching, make sure that they are able to hear how you pronounce your name. I think names are very, very important. I think I've got it, but let's hear from you first, Queen. Can you just tell us how to pronounce your name?
Yes, it is Iswarya Parupudi.
Okay, so thank you so much, Aishwarya. Nice to meet you again. Welcome, super, super excited. And thank you so much for discussing the topic of imposter syndrome with us, which is something that many of us women deal with. So I kind of just want to jump into it. First and foremost, I really want to hear about you. We want to hear about you and your own relationship with imposter syndrome, especially as a woman in tech.
Yeah, leading a team was always a passion of mine. When I was presented this opportunity, the voice in my head was saying, I can't, I shouldn't, and I'd fail. It is completely natural to feel this way. Fast forward to 2 years, I have built a high-performing engineering team, led multiple culture-shaping initiatives within my team and my company, and empower everyone I interact with to become the best version of themselves. A lot of factors contribute to imposter syndrome, like our childhood experiences, lack of physical representation. And it comes in multiple forms. It can come in the form of an expert, where you expect to know everything and you feel ashamed when you don't. It can come in the form of a perfectionist. You set impossibly high standards for yourself and beat yourself up if you don't reach them. It can come in the form of a superhero. You feel like you should excel at every role you take in life to succeed, and then you push to the limit, expanding as much energy as possible in every role. It can come in the form of an individualist. You believe you should be able to handle everything solo. If you can't achieve success independently, you consider yourself unworthy. And you don't take credit for a task if anyone else has helped you. It can also come in the form of a natural genius. You've spent your life picking up new skills with little effort, and you believe you should understand new material and processes right away. If something doesn't come easily to you, or you fail to succeed in your first try, you might feel ashamed and embarrassed, but we can all overcome it. So my imposter syndrome came in the form of an expert. Some things that helped me break the cycle are firstly, acknowledging the feeling, being aware of when imposter syndrome was kicking in, finding signs like negative thinking and physical symptoms like stress and anxiety. The second thing is voicing out my concerns to my mentor. This reminds me of something my mentor and CTO shared during the initial days of my becoming the director of engineering. Since this was a new role for me, there was a lot of learning involved, and I was concerned that I would not do a good job. He then asked me one simple question. Do you think I know everything? And hearing this from someone as accomplished as him boosted my confidence and helped me overcome this feeling. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, I started to say, I'm not good enough yet. With that one change, the negative voice in my head stopped being devastating and started being motivating. It is pretty common for us to hold ourselves back, to tick all the boxes before saying yes for a promotion or to apply for a job. You've probably heard of this statistic. Men apply for a job when they meet 60% of the requirements, but women only apply for a job if they meet 100% of them. If I gave in to my negative thoughts, I would have missed out on a great opportunity to help and lead people. I feel extremely grateful to have such amazing mentors and guides to help me navigate these feelings when they arise. And it really feels amazing to watch my team grow and succeed now.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And it made me start thinking about where I fall in those categories of dealing with myself, still dealing with being like imposter syndrome. So that's very, very insightful, and it definitely resonated. So why do you think that even the most qualified women like you, right, still struggle with feeling the opposite? What do you think that is, in your opinion?
That's a great question. So this psychological discomfort is often rooted in our pressures, either from ourselves or from others, to achieve great success. In some cases, imposter syndrome develops due to experiences we've had in our childhood. For example, if one grew up in a household where they were overshadowed by another sibling or relative who was designated as the smartest person in the family, they would spend most of their childhood and adult life overachieving to prove their intelligence. In another instance, the syndrome can also affect women who were told as kids that they were perfect and they could do anything with ease, only to be hit later with the reality that their skills could only get them so far. Then these women began to wonder if their parents had been overstating their talents. The pressure of perfection hold, and they began to doubt their self-worth. Also, people who suffer from low self-esteem and negative self-talk are particularly vulnerable, as are surprisingly high achievers and perfectionists. Also, folks who can't take compliments from others are unlikely to be able to give them to themselves.
Oh.
There is so much content and so much content in our tech world nowadays, and so much to learn that we constantly beat ourselves up to know everything. And that is that's an impossible goal to set ourselves to. There are other reasons too to cause imposter syndrome. Lack of physical representation is a big one. The lack of role models for minority communities has a major impact on making people feel like they do or they don't belong in corporate environments. Without this representation, there is no signal of possibility of advancement. We are more likely to experience imposter syndrome if we don't see many examples of people who look like us or share our background who are clearly succeeding in our field. This is especially true for Black and Indigenous people, for whom overall representation across almost all white-collar fields is alarmingly low. Then there is the sense of traditional focus on female beauty. This can also impact on self-doubt. If you've grown up with messages like, you're only valued for your looks and your body, not your skills or intelligence, you may end up getting a certain job or position and wondering if you got it, if you truly deserve it, or if the hiring manager just thought you were a pretty face. And then I guess this is something that everyone almost does, is comparison with more experienced people or people who we look up to. It's natural for us not to know as much as our role models. We need to stop comparing ourselves with others. Rather, compare ourselves with what we were like 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and where we are today. You are where you are because someone recognized your talents and your potential. The other side of why this happens is because we are all human. And sometimes what happens in our personal life can affect our overall confidence, leading to negative self-talk and self-doubt. For people dealing with mental health issues, this issue might be a lot more severe. Like fears of failure can cause plenty of emotional distress. And many people coping with imposter feelings also experience anxiety and depression. But living with depression or anxiety might mean that you're already experiencing self-doubt, diminished self-confidence, and worries around how others will perceive you. The mindset of feeling less than can both lead to and reinforce the belief that you don't really belong in your academic setting or your professional setting. Imposter syndrome can really worsen mental health symptoms, creating a cycle that's difficult to escape. In these situations, use empathy also to yourself and to others who you think are in these situations. Some suggest imposter syndrome is not really a syndrome, but a natural extension of success. We are all plagued with self-doubt at some point It's part of being human. But for people with imposter syndrome, which affects men and women equally, the self-doubt can be crushing. We consistently feel our accomplishments don't mean anything. Deep down, we think we are not talented enough to deserve praise.
Wow. So with that being said, how have you observed like examples of imposter syndrome that has impacted a woman's work? Like, yeah, I mean, that's the question. Like, what have you seen, like, based on your experience?
Mhm. It doesn't affect every individual the same way. It really depends on our personal experiences and our mental health state. Of course, like as we all know, like imposter syndrome can lead to elevated anxiety, increased stress, poor performance at work, and setbacks in career progression. We may not seek out better opportunities due to the fear of feeling like a fraud. Or it could cause our management styles to not be as effective due to micromanagement or perfection, or even lack of self-confidence. It stops us from reaching our true potential. Those who experience imposter syndrome often find themselves caught up in an cycle. They think every task that they tackle has to be done perfectly, and they rarely ask for help. That perfectionism, right? Like we've all experienced.
No, exactly. I literally feel like you're like talking to me right now. I'm like, but you're right. But I'm sorry. Please continue. This is very important.
And that perfectionism, right? It can lead to two typical responses. We may procrastinate for the first thing, putting off an assignment out of fear that we won't be able to complete it to the necessarily high standards that we set for ourselves. Or we might over prepare, spending much more time on a task than it is necessary. If procrastination leads to a successful outcome, we still consider it as luck or a fluke. And what if we get success from over preparation? This reinforces the idea that we need to work extra hard every single time. And we would not have succeeded otherwise if we don't put in so much of hard work. So this cycle can quickly become an exhausting one and has plenty of negative implications on not only your career, but your health, well-being, and also your personal relationships. It contributes to psychological distress, continued self-monitoring, like am I doing enough? Increased self-doubt and persistent fear of failures. And it can negatively impact careers because people may overproduce to prove that they are capable.
Mm-hmm.
This leads to obviously burnout. I've experienced this multiple times due to the same reason. But like whenever this happens, catch ourselves before it worsens and bring ourselves back, because this can ultimately be counterproductive.
Exactly.
People may also miss out opportunities because they don't feel that they're worthy or capable despite being competent. And imposter syndrome can negatively impact our relationships when a family member prioritizes career success over time with families or children. Partners and families can suffer when someone spends too much time trying to prove themselves in a professional capacity to the detriment of their personal life.
There's so many different things I am thinking, like relating to, especially the burnout, but I also think going back to having representation as well, and being able to communicate to your mentors or your leadership with somebody that looks like you or can experience what you're able to communicate that before you get to that point. So all of this is a domino effect. So yes. So moving beyond how imposter syndrome can feel, how have you yourself been able to shake that off? And honestly, I mean, I know there's not a formula, but sometimes that's how I think sometimes. I think like there's got to be a formula of how to like just check this off the list and we don't have to deal with it, but that's not true. So what advice would you give other women how to do the same, of their way of shaking it off, or knowing that, hey, this is a work in progress, and not putting so much pressure on oneself?
Yes. I think the first thing is to separate the feeling from reality. Like instead of agreeing with the thought that I'm not good enough, collect some real evidence that you might be intelligent and accomplished, like higher than average grades, positive feedback from mentors and teachers, promotions, praises from bosses. Anyone who knows me always knows that I always say asking for help is not a sign of weakness. When you're in doubt, seek out an experienced mentor. You're not alone. 70% of people have at some point in their career experienced imposter syndrome. Keeping these feelings to ourselves can make them overwhelming. Talking about it can help find a solution. And this is my favorite one. And do something for yourself, something that you love. Have some hobbies, exercise. I personally love exercising as it lifts my mood instantly.
100%. Like it's exactly. I love it. It's like that sweating it out. I completely agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, I highly encourage some physical activity for at least 15 minutes a day. Like it can be a small brisk walk for 15 minutes. You're not only going to get physically fit, but you'll also be able to cope with the stress and issues that arise every day better. This is also something I practice, writing about our achievements. This way, we have recorded. Can you hear me?
Yep. You're freezing up a little, like you're going,
Perfect.
like freezing up, but we can hear you at least. You're good. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So yeah, writing about our achievements. This way we have it recorded somewhere, all of what we have accomplished, we can organize our ideas better and always consult to see how much we've accomplished so far. I do this like every Friday. I time to reflect on a Friday afternoon as I'm closing out the week to write down what I had accomplished that week and what I can do to get better. You can call this as a mini retrospective for yourself. It has a name though, if you want to look it up. They are called hype talks or brag documents. Come performance review season. I know a lot of people. Sorry.
No, say that again. It's hype talk. And then what's the other?
Hype docs and brag documents.
Hype talk, hype doc, and brag documents. Got you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And like, I know that performance review season like usually brings a lot of anxiety to a lot of people, but especially for folks who are going through imposter syndrome. So these hype docs or brag documents can be a history of all of your accomplishments. You don't need to think a lot to write about, during the season, to write about your own accomplishments. It could never be easier. This is also something I ask all of my team members to do. If we make the habit, it would also help in self-promotion. And also, like asking others what we are good at. Getting feedback from our colleagues whom we work with every single day. And seeking out the hard feedback too. It's not as bad as we think. Take constructive criticism as a positive opportunity to grow rather than an implication that you're not good enough. One powerful way to fight this feeling like a fraud is to think of ourselves not as a list of accomplishments, but as a complex mix of wins and losses. And to remind ourselves we are constantly evolving and learning from not being afraid to live the life we want.
So I wanted to jump in really quickly because we do actually have a question from the audience. Beverly Childress asked, so Aishwarya, she asked, can you address relaunching careers after many years off as a caregiver? How can we combat those voices that say we are not qualified? I feel like you've tapped on it, but like, adding a little bit more color specifically to Beverly's experience, relaunching, coming back into the workforce.
Yeah, this is something that we will all face with at some point in our lives. And it is completely okay. First of all, feeling this is completely okay. And like all you need is like to set a plan, a clear plan, and don't divert from it. Make sure that like, what do you want to do like going forward? Don't even think that you're not qualified. You are qualified. You have done enough. Like take some interview prep classes and things like that to kind of get you back in the zone, and talk to your previous colleagues and talk about like what work they are currently doing, and if you can resonate well with it currently, and things will start slowly sticking together. And this is something that like a lot of us will go through, but everyone has a different approach to this. But don't give up. Just because something is hard doesn't mean that we have to give up. Talk to a mentor, talk to a coach. Like there are so many places out, like so many networking tools out there nowadays. First of all, Power to Fly is a great one. There are a lot of like chat and learn sessions where we
Preach.
have where we have a lot of these topics like discussed. And I think this was also one of the topics that was discussed in one of the chat and learns. And like bringing like talking about like whatever concerns we have. Do we want like help with interviewing? Like we can definitely find coaches who will help us prepare. Like what skills are we worried that we lost, right? Like from the time that we had spent away from work. It's just a matter of preparation, and we'll be able to get back into our workplaces.
Yeah, it's crazy. A lot of this is the idea of keeping open communication, being vulnerable, reconnecting, and asking. It kind of makes me rethink sometimes how I approach things, because I'm like, well, you at a certain age should know certain things. Why are you revisiting it? You should remember. And it's like, no, that's that external support that you need to help out. So that's really helpful. We have a couple of minutes, but like, this is really important. I would love to hear from you as well, being a woman in tech. What do you actually think tech industries, how can they, prevent women? How can they help prevent women from experiencing, imposter syndrome? Like what insight do you have from like about that specifically?
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that we do, right? Like start with knowing your employees. If you're a leader, it's very important to know your team, like their behavioral styles and their strengths. Understand that each employee is unique and brings in different perspectives and their own set of strengths. This will help you tailor your dialogue according to how their style likes to be approached, and can make them feel more psychologically safe to open up when they do have concerns. Leverage situational leadership. This is a great tool for leadership. Like one size doesn't fit all. Understanding every individual skill level and commitment to do a task can help us understand which style of leadership to apply in a given circumstance. For example, for an individual with low competence but high commitment, you can be more directive. When a new employee joins your company, you want to be more direct in the initial days of their job to ensure they get all the context necessary to do their job. As the time passes, you can adapt your style to coach, to support, or to delegate tasks as competence and commitment levels change over time. And ask your employees how they like to receive feedback. Do they like them written? Do they like it verbal, in person, in a public setting, or a private setting? All of these matter to make sure that we are putting them in a comfortable zone. With the rise of imposter syndrome among workers, there is a need for explicit recognition, especially in the remote world. Focusing on frequent positive feedback is the key. At my company, Voxy, we do this pretty frequently. We have formal and informal settings to provide to provide recognition and feedback.
Yeah.
It can be in a one-on-one setting between managers and direct
We do
reports.
that here at Power to Fly, and it makes a huge difference of just giving that shout out and like acknowledging those people. I'm sorry, continue, go ahead.
Right. Yes, in one-on-one settings, right? Like even when we're giving positive feedback, it's very important to give examples so that we know that whatever the person receiving knows that what we are saying is genuine. And in team settings too, like we collaborate and help each other every single day. And this gives us an opportunity to gather a lot of feedback for all of our co-workers. While closing out our sprints, we dedicate a section of our sprint retrospectives to something called as shout-outs to give to our co-workers to recognize the great work that they have done. And we also do this in a company setting as well. For a company to function well and to meet our goals, we need to collaborate with other departments. Every month, we recognize our team members' accomplishments by nominating them for a monthly Impressive Performance Award, irrespective of which department they come from. Something that goes hand in hand with recognition is to say how grateful we are to have such excellent team members to work with every single day. And another big part is like not stigmatizing imposter syndrome and talking openly about it, creating a psychologically safe environment for your team so that they feel safe to reach out to talk to you about these issues. Help your employees channel healthy self-doubt into positive motivation, which is best fostered within a supportive work culture. Earlier, we spoke about physical representation. The solution is very clear. Diversify your team. It cannot be said enough. Representation matters. Inclusive workplaces act as a multivitamin that can ensure that every individual can thrive. You can do this by following inclusive hiring practices and making diversity a priority.
I'm so sorry, Aishwarya. So we have a couple minutes left and we have a question from Sonia, and no pressure, but we're going to try to do a quick combo of both because Sonia says that I am an older adult currently completing a UX design bootcamp. My concern is that being judged because I'm older and it looks like I've made a lot of career mistakes. I'm happy about where I'm at, but any suggestions on how to deal with this? And then to tag team that question, that's what my last question for all the women watching right now and allies for women that are dealing with imposter syndrome. Based off of that question, what else would you like to say regarding how women are feeling about that now, and what any advice that you can give on that?
Yep. Sonia, I think the time is pretty short to cover this question in detail, but definitely get a mentor, talk about in detail with them. And to close out for all women like listening, imposter syndrome, it's all a mind game. Don't let it be a barrier for what you want to do in life. Imposter syndrome can affect your sense of self-worth, happiness, and professional progression, and can affect majority of people at some point in their life. Addressing your imposter syndrome will allow you to accept that you deserve your success and allow you to reach greater heights in your professional life. Offer yourself kindness and compassion instead of judgment and self-doubt. It can help you maintain a realistic perspective and motivate you to pursue healthy self-growth. It's also worth remembering doing what you love is most important than obsessing over whether you're worthy to do it in the first place.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you so much for this time that you've given to us and expanding on the topic of imposter syndrome in the workforce. And thank you so much for taking your time today. And thank you for leading our summit week. This has been super exciting and amazing. And thank you so much again, Aishwarya. I really, really appreciate it. And, we will definitely be in touch soon.
Thank you, Lucy. Thanks for all you do. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity to speak on this platform. Thanks a lot, Power to Fly. And special shout out to anyone who's listening from Voxy.
Yes. Thank you.